Hello and welcome, students. I'm glad again to be here. This week, or in the previous weeks, we've been talking about issues that are related to tourism service providers and the kind of services that they offer. For example, we've discussed about accommodation, we've discussed about food and beverages, we've discussed about transportation and so on. So moving ahead now, from this week onward, we'll discuss issues that relate to tourism environment. So for this week, we're going to start with economic and political impact of tourism. So what are the economic impact of tourism as well as the political impact of tourism? So that will be our focus for this week. As usual, we have the learning objectives, which at the end of the discussion or at the end of the class, we hope to have been able to achieve. The first is to identify and explain the economic benefits of tourism, after which we'll try to identify and explain the political economic problems that can be created by tourism. Moving ahead, we'll try to explain why tourism revenue are considered an export. In addition to those, we'll try to explain what is meant by the tourism multiplier concept, and move ahead again. We'll try to list the various organizations that promote tourism and as well explain how the convention centers are used to generate tourism. In addition to those, we'll explain the steps involved in tourism planning, and lastly for today, we'll try to explain why tourism development can lead to political thugs of war. Starting with international tourism, we want to see the importance of international tourism. Many times when we discuss about the impact of tourism to any country or any geographical region or area, we want to assess or provide answers to quite a number of questions. Firstly, for example, we want to know the number of jobs, like what number of jobs in that particular location is related to tourism or tourism business. You want to see how much revenue, how much tax revenue is raised through taxes paid by tourists. You want to see how much how much revenue is generated on goods and services as well. So to many countries or many regions, tourism is one of the top part of their exports. All right, they generate a lot of money from tourism. And internationally, it is one of the top 5 exports for over 83% of the world's countries. So over 83% of the world's tourism is one of the top 5 among over 83% of the world's country. According to the World Tourism Organization, an important indicator of the international tourism is its generation of foreign exchange earnings. There is a lot of foreign earning generation when it comes to the tourism industry. And as a result, several factors interact to make the international travel attractive. And these are the factors that we have here. First is the increased disposable income. When people have disposable income is the income that accrues to a person after the income must have been taxed. So what they have left is their disposable income. So when there is increased disposable income, then there is possibility or likelihood that such people may want to assign some to at least have some time to themselves through tourism. They want to have some moment of enjoyment. So there is possibility that they want to increase their international travel. Then when there is increase in leisure time as well, it also promotes tourism. It allows people to, go far and wide to enjoy their leisure time. Destination attractiveness is also a very, very important factor that attracts tourism. Relative travel cost is also a very, very important factor depending on where, and this is what determines tourism to a very large extent. You want to look at your finance as well. So you want to compare cost. Okay, if I go to country A or destination A and it will cost me this amount. If I explore destination B, it's going to cost this amount. So I think it's better I go for B because it's cheaper. You understand? So relative travel cost is also very, very important. And lastly, we have the local exchange rate as well. You want to see what unit of the currency that you can purchase with your own local currency. So all these are factors that interact, or that interact to actually make international travel very attractive. This is just to show us the top 10 international tourism receipts for us to be able to understand properly that tourism really generates a lot to many countries' revenue. So it really generates. Here we can see that United States generates 177.2 billions in terms of US dollars, followed by Spain, which generates 65.2, followed by China, France, all right, down to United Kingdom, which generates 45.3%, 45.3 billion, up to Thailand and Hong Kong. So these are just the top 10 international generation tourism receipt. So this is the international tourist arrival. It's also one of the factors. Don't forget that apart from the job, when we talk about the impact, and we want to know the impact of tourism to the economy, we want to see, okay, like how many jobs are created, we want to see like how many or how much revenue is being generated and so on. So apart from revenue generation from tax, you also want to see the international tourist arrival, how many people are coming in, how many tourists are coming in or visiting those particular destinations. And here, top on the list, we have France with 83.7 million, followed by United States, Spain, China, and Italy with 48.6 million. So how do researchers estimate tourism spending? How do we go about tourism spending, estimating tourism spending? Like we all know, we've talked about generating fund, we've talked about, but what about the spending aspect of it? The first step is to estimate the number of arrivals at a destination. All right, you want to estimate that, okay, how much do we generate or how much do we get from tourism spending? The first step is to estimate the number of arrivals at a particular destination. How many people have actually clocked in or registered to visit or something like that. Then the second step is to estimate the average expenditure per visitor. You want to say, okay, if 10 visitors are visited, or if 10 people are coming or tourists are visiting a particular destination, then on the average, how much do we estimate that they are likely to spend? Of course, they want to eat, so you may want to estimate how much they will spend on feeding. They may want to maybe do some small shoppings. If you have gift shop, what do we call them, souvenir shops, and so on and so forth. So you want to estimate, okay, if 10 people actually visit, or 10 million people are estimated or have registered to visit, so how much do we expect each of them to spend? And then you now multiply by the number of arrivals, like I mentioned earlier, and then you multiply these two estimates together for you to be able to arrive at a total amount of tourism spending in a specific destination. Once you get the first, once you get the number of arrival first, then you estimate the expenditure per visitor. All right, by surveying the samples of the travelers. You want to sample them, you want to take their profile, and then you want to, take some other statistics as well. And by the time you combine these both, you multiply the estimate of the spending by the number of arrivals or tourists at a particular destination. So with these two, we estimate tourism spending. Looking into tourism for economic growth and vitality. People around the world also, they survive on economic income. All right, they survive on income. How do they survive? How do they generate this income? By producing, by selling, by engaging in different activities that is going to earn them income. So people have many options, and this may range from different kind of activities. It could be farming, it could be business, it could be banking, it could be insurance, anything, as long as it's going to generate income for them. As for tourism, developing of tourism offers a country a means of increasing economic well-being. So we want to see how and why tourism affect the economic viability of any economy. So economics is the social science, like we must have been taught this, all right, perhaps in our first year. It's a social science that seeks to understand the choices people make. We all know that it's a study of choices given the relative scarce resources that are available to people. So it's the study of, it's a social science that seeks to understand the choices that people make in, in using their scarce resources to meet their wants. So you want to see what you have, you want to see the resources that are available and how you are going to use what you have to actually get what you want. For tourists, these scarce resources could be in various forms. It could be money, it could be the available time to them. Okay, even if I have the money and the time is not available, it might not be achievable. And you also need to have the physical energy, of course, to travel. You must be maybe medically fit to be able to embark upon the journey, and then be fit to also carry out or embark upon the journey as it were. So for tourists, these scarce resources are not actually limited to money alone. Other important factors are also, we should be taking cognizance of, like I mentioned, the time available as well as the physical energy to travel. So all these are the resources that you have, and then you see to, as economics students, you need to see how you can use these resources to actually meet your wants or your desires. Having explained what scarce resources means to tourists, we want to see the other stakeholders too. What are the scarce resources to them? For instance, we have the tourism promoters and suppliers, and for them, the resources are human and financial. All right, it could be human in nature, where you have maybe labor, the labor that they're going to employ to work for them, and so on, as well as financial resources. For the communities and countries, these resources are the natural and human. The resources are in form of natural and human. For example, natural resources include perhaps springs, waterfalls, forests, mountains, and so on. So all these are works of nature, all right? They are natural there, and they now contribute, all right, they generate income for these particular communities or geographical area as a result of tourist visitation to such areas. For government, the resources are primarily financial, because this is the major source of revenue to the government. All right, we have revenue from taxation, which is a major source of revenue from the government, and they use this to develop natural and human resources and to pay for government services. Now we want to move on to the concept of comparative advantage, right? The comparative advantage. Economic decisions are often based on the concepts that we call comparative advantage. And comparative advantage is not only limited to the tourism industry, and from all sectors actually have this concept, all right, of phenomenon. Comparative advantage is an economic ability to produce a particular good or service at a lower opportunity cost compared to other partners, okay, compared to other business partners, or other trading partners. We want to see how, or we want to compare the the benefits of producing something, all right, at a very low opportunity cost. So in terms of tourism, it has comparative advantage over other industries if it yields a better return on the region's human and natural resource input, right? So you want to compare your own comparative advantage with others, and that can only be defined when the yield that you are also going to generate in terms of we are now referring to the tourism industry now, when the revenue generated from tourism is higher than that of other resources. Tourism's comparative advantage. Tourism is likely to have a comparative advantage in a particular region in various instances. For example, if it has features that are highly attractive to visitors. When you have features like I mentioned earlier, that it could be natural. For instance, I mentioned perhaps river, waterfalls, mountains, and so on and so forth. So when you have these areas and they are very, very attractive to visitors, then you are likely to generate more income. It's also possible to have comparative advantage in a particular region if it is easily accessible to tourists. There are some places that have this resources that can be used as tourism attraction, that can serve as tourism attraction, but a disadvantage is the fact that they are not accessible to tourists. So that may be a kind of challenge. It's also likely to, to have comparative advantage. Tourism is likely to have comparative advantage if it has necessary infrastructure and abundant labor force. You need to have abundant labor force because you'll be rendering service. You need people to welcome your guests. You need people to perhaps maybe tour guide, for example, to take them through the, the center or the destination, so to say, and so on and so forth. So all these are, put together are determinants of comparative advantage in the tourism industry. Tourism may have comparative advantage if the region has no other industry alternatives. In instances where that is the only thing that they have, then it also has comparative advantage, as that would be their main source of revenue generation. Tourism and foreign exchange rates. Of course, there is a relationship between these two because especially at the international level where you'll be having international tourists or visitors to a particular destination. So the relative exchange rate of currency is very, very important. In fact, one of the most important factors that determine the level of international tourism to and from a country. Because as a traveler, you want to see how many units of your own currency, of your own local currency is going to purchase the currency of the your destination, that's your tourism destination. And apart from that, you want to see, you want to compare the purchasing power, all right, of your money. What can you buy with a unit of your own money compared to what you can buy with a unit of the tourist attraction currency, all right? So this is very important. The spread of euro has lessened the effect of foreign exchange in euro. Now moving on to the common features, all right? One of the most common features of the economic impact of tourism is the fact that money spent by tourists in a region is added to its economy. Of course, that will be new money. This is a form of income generation now, all right? So money that are spent by tourists in a particular region, because people are coming from other places to a particular region, all right? So the money that are being spent now is regarded as new money, and it is an addition to the already existing money in that particular region or country. Money is then respent within the region again, all right? It is being respent within the region and it multiplies. That's the concept of multiplier. So tourist dollars are spent to buy goods and services. When you bring your money to a particular destination, you use them to buy goods, you use them to buy food, you use them to buy other items, maybe souvenirs that you want to take back home. You pay for accommodation, you know all sort of things. You visit the gym, you visit the spa. There are so many things that are provided by the tourist destination. So all these are going to be paid for definitely, and then you also pay for services also. Like I mentioned, spa now, it's a service rendering part of the package of tourism. So people render services, they give you massage, they give you all the treatments, and then you pay for the service. So this is how money, is being multiplied in the economy. So multiplier effect occurs when some of a person's particular money is respent, right? It's respent, and then it continues to multiply. From an export point of view, all right, an export is defined as a good or service manufactured or provided in one country that is purchased by a person or business from another country. I think we should all have an understanding of what export is. It's just basically what you produce locally that is being sent to other geographical locations or country for purchase. So you are exporting them out of your own geographical location. Exports actually add money to one economy and deduct money from another economy. So it's usually when you are exporting, it's going to add to your economy because you will be getting money back in exchange of the good or the service that you are offering. Tourism services sold to foreign travelers are considered as exports as well, because those people that you are rendering those services to are actually from other parts of the world, so they are also considered as exports. It also applies to domestic travel as well. Multiplier concept applies to domestic travel, not only international travel. We've talked about export in terms of sending goods outside or providing services to tourists. So multiplier also applies to domestic travels. Dollars to pay for service are then respent. Okay, when you pay for services, they are now respent by tourism providers to pay for local goods and services. Of course, you've paid for the food that you ate, for the food and drink that you took in a particular destination restaurant, for example. Of course, the restaurant will also pay those that supply them the raw food before they cook. They will pay for the rent of that particular location, and they will even pay for the staff. So all these are also part of the multiplier effect. They are also respending the money within the economy. Dollars are spent and respent until 100% of dollars are leaked from the local economy. The faster the leakage, then the lower the output of the multiplier. So this is simply an explanation of how multiplier effect works. All right, it's explained how Sam also, I'm not mistaken, is a traveler or a tourist, and she has to, she collected her own income and she has to start spending. She has to pay the chauffeur, she has to travel and pay for other services. So this is just a pictorial presentation of the multiplier concept. So moving ahead, we want to see how economists derive multiplier. All right, they derive multipliers for a number of variables. For example, they derive multiplier for income. We have the income multiplier effect, employment multiplier, output, sales and transactions multiplier. It could be in form of government revenue in terms of taxes as well as imports. So all these are the various ways in which economists derive multiplier for the specific variables. The multiplier effect is the sum of 3 levels of impact created by tourism purchases. There are 3 levels of impact that are created by tourism purchases, and these effects are the direct, the indirect, and the induced effect. For the direct effects or the first round effects, they are from the first round of the tourism spending. Okay, as a tourist, the first point of call is when perhaps you receive your wages. Okay, you collect your wages before you start spending. So that's your income, and then you now start multiplying. I mean, the income start multiplying as much as you spend or as you go on spending. So the second one is the indirect effect or the secondary effect. These are second round from increase in the purchase of tourism suppliers. The tourism suppliers, like I mentioned, when you as a tourist, you pay, all right, and then from that money also, the tourism suppliers will also need to pay perhaps their staff, they pay for rent, they pay for raw materials and so on. So all these are part of this secondary effect. And lastly, we have the induced effect. These are the other increases in economic activity, other increases in economic activity, for example, employment taxes, increase in tourist expenditure on health care. So these are part of the things that comprise the induced effect. So these are the 3 major dimensions of multiplier effect. It could be direct, it could be indirect, and it could be induced, or it could have induced effects. Next is tracking the impact of tourism expenditure. How do we track the impact? Because of course tourism has like I mentioned earlier, it has its own impact on the economy, both political and economic. So we want to see how multipliers are an indicator of economic independence of a country. To a large extent, you want to, multipliers actually indicate or they signify the extent of independence of a country. For example, island countries have very quick leakage and very low output multiplier due to so many reasons or factors. Because one is that the tourism is the major source of generation, revenue generation for them. So almost all goods associated with tourism need to be imported. They don't have other natural resources. Perhaps that is the main or only natural resources. So they usually, and of course we all know what islands are, all right? So they usually get most of their resources from outside. So they import them to the country. Then there is a lot of foreign ownership of this industry too. There is a lot of foreign ownership. Then transnational companies are also likely to venture more in the tourism industry of destinations that are, or to places that have low output multiplier. Then foreign franchises too. Foreign franchises is also one of the reasons that cause leakage, because as much as you make your money as a tourism supplier or provider of services, and if it's under a franchise, then you need to pay the franchisor too. Okay, as you are earning income, you continue paying your levy to the franchisor. So all these are things that can bring about leakages to tourist destinations. Now we are moving on to economic impact analysis. Economic impact analysis is a methodology for evaluating the impact of project, program, or policy on the economy of a specified region. There are projects, there are programs, there are policies and everything, but when you want to measure the impact of all these on a specific region, then you try to, it's referred to as economic impact analysis. It's actually an inexact process because it's just a work of best guess rather than being invaluably accurate. It cannot be 100% accurate. So it's used to determine tourism activity, and these have effects on the income of employment of residents. The results of the economic impact analysis are useful to so many stakeholders. One, the public policy makers, all right, excuse me, and the area's residents, those that are residing in that particular area or geographical location, as well as the public policy makers. So it's also very useful to the private organizations as well. So we're going to examine this in detail. So looking at the positive impact of tourism, it provides a stable source of income to a region due to its historic ability to weather recessions well. So economic impact of tourism, one of the economic impact of tourism is the fact that it provides a stable source of income. At least you know that regardless, you still have quite a number of tourists visiting that particular destination. It provides diversity to an economy and offers a variety of employment. Economies can diversify, right? When you have other sectors too, apart from banking, apart from maybe agriculture and so on, you can still venture into tourism. So it's one of the means of diversifying the economy. It provides economic incentive to provide or to improve infrastructure that can be used by locals. And lastly, it can also provide many opportunity for small business ownership and entrepreneurship. So these are the main positive impacts of tourism to any geographical area or country. Moving ahead, we want to see the potential problem in tourism-based economies? What are the potential problems that tourism-based economies might be facing, or what are the problems that they are faced with? Area can become over-dependent on tourism, so that the major decline in tourism has a devastating effect on the entire economy. Don't forget that we mentioned earlier that there are some economies that depend largely on tourism, for example, islands. All right, so they depend largely on economy to the extent that when there is over dependence, then they will be affected once there is decline in the patronage. Once there is decline in the number of people that visit or the number of tourists, then it's going to affect the economy of that particular geographical area. Climate change and political instability are also factors that are very, very important. There are some, places that climate change might affect people's decision to visit that particular area. Terrorism and the threat of terrorism can also wipe out tourist demand. And people are aware that a particular place is not, it's not safe, then they will be discouraged from visiting such destinations. Problem of too much of a good thing attracting too many visitors is also a factor, a potential problem to tourism-based economies. When something is too much, or too good, too much of it also will lead to it will cause a kind of potential problem, because when you also have many visitors to cater for. Tourism in the economic balance. The use of cost-benefit analysis is what we really mean here. At the business level, you want to see your revenue, you want to see your income. Your costs, okay, cost of production, you want to compare it to your revenue and see how far you have done or how well you are. So the use of cost-benefit analysis to determine the total economic impact of tourism is what we mean in terms of economic balance. For example, dollar values assigned to benefit and cost. If dollar value benefit is higher than the cost, when there is more benefit than the cost, then the positive there is the total positive impact. Okay, when you are expressing the impact of something, then you consider the cost and the benefit. When the benefit is more than the cost, then you can say, okay, it's having a positive impact. If on the other hand, the cost is higher, then you can say it's having a negative impact. So that is just the basic analysis in any sector, not only the tourism industry. So coming back to the industry or the tourism level, once the benefit is higher than the cost, then we'll be saying the tourism is having a positive impact. But when the cost is higher, then it's definitely having a negative impact. Attempts are now made to quantify difficult value pluses and minus, right? E.g., increased entertainment options for locals and increased crowding and traffic. So people are now trying to, attempts are being made to try to quantify this so that they will be measurable. You can see how you can measure in terms of the cost as well as the benefits to be able to get the actual impact. Okay, you want to see whether it is positive or having a negative impact. Now we want to move on to tourism and politics. Tourism and politics. Politics is how decisions are made. It is how power, it's about power. Who gets what, where, why, how, and why. So all these are questions that are answered with politics. It is how decisions are made. Politics about tourism is usually about how decisions concerning the use of scarce resources are made. Right? It could be natural, it could be human, it could be other forms of resources, but basically it's decisions on how these resources are made. Development of tourism often leads to political debates and tugs of war among the constituent groups. We're still going to talk about the constituent groups later on. So here we have examples of tourism-related taxes. All right, like we have hotel or lodging tax, we have different kinds of taxes: hotel or lodging tax, restaurant tax, gasoline tax, base tax, and then dollar surcharge, as well as off airport fees. So you can see Baltimore, Chicago, Houston, okay, and so on, New York, Seattle, Washington. So these are the taxes that are being generated from each of the states. Now, we are moving on to the role of government in tourism. What role does government play in tourism? Governments, either local or through the national, often play a role in tourism development and promotion. Governments of different regions or countries do play important roles in terms of development and promotion of tourism. Government support of tourism comes in a variety of forms. For example, it could be collection of tourism information. All right, government might assist in the collection of tourism information such that this information is being used by researchers and to predict what is going to likely become of the tourism industry. Regulation of tourism businesses is also another role of government, right, or how government supports the tourism industry. The businesses are being regulated, governments makes law, and they are being enforced such that so as to ensure the desired outcome. Then promotion of tourism, especially of the area. If the area is a destination, if the area is a particular destination, then government also engage in promotion of all these tourism areas. Well, government also help to source for funding, all right, of necessary infrastructure and government-backed loans. All these are the means through which government supports or source funding. They serve as sources of funding. They give loans to, the players in the tourism industry. They also involve in or development of tourism policy and planning. The government also help in developing policies and planning so as to ensure that the tourism industry is growing well after all. They own and manage important tourism or resources. For example, you have the US National Park System. So this is also one of the ways in which the government participates in the tourism industry or business. It's seen as a move to privatization of government-owned tourism enterprises as well. So all these are part of the ways or means through which by which government supports tourism. Now we want to talk about the tourism promotion agencies. Government are often, they often have agencies that promote the tourism, whether at the national level or at the state or provincial level. So at the national level, we have the National Tourism Organization or Office. This is in relation to the United States. In other countries as well, we have governments. We have other names for other agencies, the government agency that promote tourism. Then we also have the state or the provincial agency, that's at the state level. There are two main primary functions of these organizations, that's at the government level, at the federal government level, and at the state level. They collect visitor and industry information as well as statistics. I mentioned earlier, they collect information at times you visit. Most times, even when you visit tourist attractions, you fill perhaps forms or maybe on the website or whatever, you provide certain information, personal information. So all these are also used by the government or researchers. So they are often at welcome centers by the government. When you have government-owned agencies, they often collect this data at the welcome center. Most times it's in form of registration. So you register at the counter before you proceed to the destination. They also promote the entire destination. So those are the two main primary functions of these particular organizations. They collect visitor information or statistics, and they promote the entire destination. Moving on to destination marketing organization, tourists are the first sold on a destination area, and they look to buy specific services to fulfill their particular needs. They are the first sold on any particular area, and of course you'll be looking forward to your destination. You want to see, okay, can I get this there? I think I heard that I can get this particular item when I get to so place. So you are really looking forward to getting there and purchasing what you need to fulfill your need. So national and state provincial governments engage in destination marketing through destination marketing organizations, or the DMOs, to generate sizable number of tourists. So when the national or the state governments also engaged in marketing. Don't forget that we mentioned that they also promote destinations. So that is one of the ways in which they can promote destination. They provide marketing services. Destination image, and this is simply defined as the detailed impression an individual or target segment has of a specific location. As a tourist, what is my impression about a particular place? So that is the destination image. What is my impression about a particular destination? This can be in three forms. The first is the cognition, the second is the affect, and the third is the coronation. Conation, excuse me. Cognition is the sum of all the potential traveler knows and believes about the destination. What do we know about that particular destination? I have that in that particular waterfall, we have cold water on one side and hot water on one side. I've had that this. So what is the the total traveler information? What do they know about that particular place? So that is the cognition. That's the first thing. The second, which is the affect, is the consumer's feelings. All right, your feelings about the place, about the destination. Is it favorable? Is it unfavorable? Do you are you in favor of the place? Is it unfavorable? You don't have maybe you are not really keen about going, or you don't feel any whatever to go there. So, or you are just neutral. Okay, it's not favorable, it's not unfavorable, but you are just feeling indifferent about the destination. And the last is the conation. The last kind of destination or form of destination image is the conation. This is the likelihood of the potential traveler to visit the destination in the near future. All right. Okay. What are the possibilities that eventually in future you will visit that particular destination? So this is the characteristics of conation. Next is destination positioning. All right, we've discussed destination image just now. So we also want to discuss about destination positioning. A destination's positioning relates to the image of one destination to those of its competitors. The first one is the image, and this is just your own impression, the tourist impression about the destination. In terms of positioning, you want to see the image of a particular destination in comparison to other destinations, and that is just about that's about the competitors. Okay, destination positioning is all relative. It depends on whoever is assessing or doing the assessment, so it is all relative. It's a way to encourage awareness and preference for a destination to successfully compete with other similar destinations. So positioning will likely encourage awareness, to encourage people to be aware, and then their preferences for a destination also can also lead to successful competition with similar destinations. So moving away from image and positioning, I want to talk about the private or public organizations. All right, don't forget that we mentioned earlier that there are organizations that are in care of this tourism. A common way for tourism promotion and development decisions to be made and funded is through the public or the private organization, or a partnership between both. It could be public-private partnership. For example, we have the Chambers of Commerce, we have the Convention and Visitors Bureau, as well as convention centers. Convention centers are designed to serve the special needs of conventions and exhibitions. Okay, must have been hearing of convention centers, this particular convention center, that convention center. So they are also destinations of tourist attractions because they are specifically designed to serve certain purposes. Marketing to attract convention and exhibition business is very different from efforts used to entice leisure travelers. All right, so the way in which this marketing is done for the convention center is quite different from the kind of effort that is going to be made to leisure travelers. Because what is the main point? I mean, the main point or the main center of attraction between the two categories is quite different. The decision process usually begins years before the event takes place, and the key determinants of these convention centers include price, the size, the quality of the facilities, the size of the facilities, and the wide variety of amenities and add-ons. So all these are the key determinants of convention centers. Here is a sample of large convention facilities. Lovely. We have the Las Vegas Convention Center. We have the Orange County Convention Center in Orlando. We have the Berlin Exhibition Grounds in Berlin, Germany, and so on and so forth. So we have many convention centers worldwide actually. Now planning. Moving on to tourism planning. What do we mean by planning? It's about predicting the future. You predict the future, you set the objectives on how you are going to achieve your objective, and you outline and implement the actions that are needed to attain such an objective. So planning shouldn't be something that is it's not a new word to us actually, but we also need to know that in tourism we need to plan as well, not only in any other walks of life. So in tourism, it's very, very important also to plan. You want to predict the future, like how many tourists or how many visitors are we likely to expect in the next season or in the next year, given the trend of number of visitors that we'll be having over the years. So something like that. You predict the future, you set the objective, what do you want to achieve at the end of the day, and then you outline how you want to implement it. How do we go about achieving those set objectives so that everything put together is what we call planning. Decisions that need to be made in tourism planning includes timing of the development. You need to be exact about the timing and the size of the infrastructure as well as superstructure. Targeting of promotional efforts is also part of the things that need to be made in tourism planning. When you're planning, you also need to make promotional efforts and you target that particular effort. Enhancement and preservation of resources is also very, very important, whether it is natural or man-made. Governments usually take the responsibility for tourism planning, often by conducting the necessary research as input to planning. Like I mentioned earlier, you want to predict. So when you want to predict, you need to have an idea of what's obtained, what have been in existence, okay, perhaps over the years, for you to be able to know what to expect in future. You compare the past with the present, and then you'll be able to anticipate what to expect, or you'll be able to predict what to expect in future. Here are the phases in the tourism policy and planning process. The first phase is the definitional phase. The definition of the tourism destination system, for example, the geographical boundaries and the specification as well as the objectives and the constraints. You want to see the strengths, the weaknesses, the threats and the opportunities that you have. That's the first phase. The second phase is the analytical phase. This is where you do both the internal and the external analysis. Then the third phase is the operational phase. This is where you determine the strategy, you predict the future demand as well as the competitive environment and the policy and program recommendations too. And lastly, we have the fourth phase, which is the implementation phase, or what you have laid down. Then how do you go about them? How do you implement them? That is the last phase. Strategy for development, promotion, and stewardship is being done at this particular stage. You assign responsibilities, all right, for people to do this, who will do that. Identification of funding sources, as well as specification of timing tactics. All these put together are under the implementation phase. Political tug of war over tourism. We mentioned earlier that there are a number of constituent groups in the tourism industry. So the tourism generates large number of constituent groups who all want their say in how decisions are made and how the resources are used. Everybody is a stakeholder. So all stakeholders in the tourism industry are particular about, how decisions are made and how things are done. So in the process, then it's there is likelihood for what is referred to as a tug of war, as there might be clash of interest. All right, there might be clash of interest. That's just the basic explanation. Each group has its own set of objectives, especially about spending of tax dollars, and factors enhance quality of life for area citizens. So all these constituents and groups that we've mentioned, or that we're going to mention, have their own interests. They have their own priorities. So when you set your own priorities, when A, for example, constituent A or group A has specific priorities that are different from that of B, then there might be clash of interest, and this is what tug of war basically means. So for the first group are the tourism business owners. Okay, they want to increase the number of tourists to that area. That's just it, because that is how they are going to generate revenue. Their revenue generation majorly depends on the number of people that visit. All right. Then another group or constituent group is the employees. For employees, what they are mostly concerned about is their job security. They want their job to be secured, and they want fair wages. So it's like each group has its own excuse me, interest, and they want it protected. So we've talked about business owners whose main interest might just be increasing the number of tourists to their own area. Of course, since we know that that is how they generate money, as well as the employees. So apart from the business owners and the employees, we also have the non-tourism business owners, right, as well as employees. They want the growth of their own industries too. So that's their own. For government officials, they want strong local economy as well as re-election. So all these are, I don't want to call them conflict of interest again, but it's a kind of tug of war, because they are not all in one. They are not in one direction. All right. The difference of, the directions of these different groups or constituents are actually diverse. All right. For taxpayers, they want variety of government services. A lot of services. They want government to provide infrastructure. They want government to do this and that. They want government to provide this and that. And as well, they also want unbearable taxes. They don't want taxes to be too high for them, because it's going to be unbearable. It's going to have effect on their disposable income. So we can see that there are actually, or there are various or conflict of interest, or various interests, as much as we have the various constituent groups in tourism. So each group has its own set of priorities, especially about spending of tax dollars. You want to see what you want to spend the revenue on is different from what another group wants to spend it on. And what factors enhance the quality of life for area citizens. For local residents, they may want clean community, they want safe community with high quality of life. For tourism, they just want to enjoy themselves. They want to have safe places to visit, and they want to have a variety of services at their disposal, so that at least they're going to have a memorable stay in wherever they decide. So all these are under the political tugs of war over tourism. And at the end of the day, we can only conclude that it is difficult to maximize all the constituents and desires. In an attempt to fulfill one, you realize that some other will be affected. At times, when you are trying to fix something, then another thing crops up. So that is just the implication of having different interests and different constituent groups with different interests. So it's going to be difficult to maximize all the constituent desires. Thank you so much for your audience. It's been a long day. Thank you once again. We've come to the end of our discussion today. Hopefully, again, we'll see you in the next class. Inshallah, we'll be moving to the next topic. Before then, please do take care of yourself and stay safe. Bye. Thank you.